Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Kanupriya, associated with Department of English at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies. I'm delighted to welcome you all in the 7-day International Faculty Development Program on creating and stimulating research-based teaching in higher education, jointly organized by Department of English, Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, and Cape Comorin Trust. The Department of English at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies was established in the year 2013, and at present more than 100 students are pursuing their undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral programs. The department has a number of research scholars with specialization in major areas of literary studies, such as post-colonial literature, translation studies, feminism, gender studies, Indian writings, etc. We at the Department of English are committed to organize conferences, seminars, workshops, guest lectures, FDPs, etc. for the holistic development of the student. Hello?
Ma'am, please continue.
For the holistic development of the students, scholars, and faculty members. Faculty development programs are organized with the aim to enrich the knowledge of faculties and scholars through interaction with eminent personalities from industries and academics. The knowledge sharing will improve the teaching learning process of the students and benefit the society. I'm happy to share that this is the second time the department is organizing faculty development program in collaboration with Cape Comorin Trust. Now, I would like to invite the Dean, Faculty of Media Studies and Humanities, Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Professor Dr. Maithili Ganju, to please present her inaugural speech. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Kanupriya. At the onset, a very warm welcome to this varied group of academicians here today for the Faculty Development Program that has been organized by the Department of English along with our partners, Cape Comorin. It gives me immense pleasure to announce that on the behalf of the entire management of the Manav Rachna, which includes the patrons as well as the top management, I am very, very glad that we are back to 2022 part of the FDP. As Kanupriya just informed us, this is something that we have done in the past. And for that, I am very, very proud of the Department of English under the able leadership of Dr. Shivani Vashisht, as well as our partners, Cape Comorin Trust, with whom we are going to very soon have a formal MOU as well, because this association has been really very, very satisfying in terms of the kind of academic outcome that we have seen. Not only have we had FDPs like the one that we have organized today, we have also had international conferences, and we have had very good meetings and very good brainstorming and idea exchange, which is something that the university is very proud of, as well as, the whole system that we have built here is something with which the scholars as well as the teachers have felt very empowered, have felt very sort of equipped in order to do the research and the teaching. The topic that we have chosen this time to look at the higher education from the point of view of being research ready or research sort of smart or research updated is a very important one in the context of our country today, because under the new education policy, which came out in 2020, the government has also laid a lot of emphasis on the higher educational institutions to take this lead into developing as research bodies, because research is something that sort of evolves, changes, and times change a lot. And therefore, not only do the methodologies change, not only does the data kind of undergo change, as in there are other intersectionalities which come into play when we talk about subjects of humanities like English literature. Therefore, it becomes very important that we are able to have this platform where international faculties like we have today and for the rest of the week who come and share with us a perspective which is global, a kind of, their experience with research methods that have been taught in their context, and it gives the scholars and it gives the faculty that opportunity to be able to look at these tools, to be look at the problems, to be looking at the data in such a way that they're able to bring out similar or same kind of newness to the studies that have been happening for a long time here. So to keep it short and sort of let the program begin, I would like to wrap up by, again, as I said, thank you very much, everyone, especially the speakers today. I see Julie here already, and this is absolutely a delight. I wish everybody, the speakers and the participants, a very, very best wishes for these 7 days. As they say, let us all together learn new things and feel empowered to do good research and help in the knowledge body that we are all a part of. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your words, informative words, and thank you for always encouraging us to promote such activities in the department and the Faculty of Media Studies and Humanities. Now, I would like to introduce you to the speaker for today's session, Dr. Julie Gerland and Dr. Y. Kalyan Lakshmi. Dr. Julie Gerland is a thought leader, pioneer, educator, international lecturer, and advocate for the lifelong effects of very early development from preconception to infancy, holistic health, and consciousness. For over a decade, Dr. Gerland advocated at the United Nations, presented at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, British Parliament, and global conferences to achieve the groundbreaking United Nations UNICEF document, Nurturing Care, a Framework for Early Childhood Development. This document, signed by global governments, is a paradigm shift in our understanding of human development. She shares a passion for life, leading-edge, holistic development, trauma resolution and prevention, as well as solution solving with a new holistic perspective of the human beings in fields such as education, health, and academia. For decades, she has mentored youth, leading them to participate in the United Nations and global conferences to speak up to uphold the highest values, think out of the box, develop their right side of the brain, listen to their heart, their intuition, and the need to foster long-term solutions to individual, societal, and global challenges. She gives hope for future generations to not only survive, but thrive. I welcome you once again, ma'am. I request all the participants to kindly note their queries or drop them in the chat box so that the questions can be taken up towards the end of both the sessions. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Priya, and I would like to thank the Dean and everybody who has been responsible, Dr. Vasudeva, the Cormoran Trust, Manav Rashna University, and all of you for being here today. I feel very honored and passionate about sharing my lifelong work with you. So this is a global conversation. I'm not here to really teach you something, but to inspire you to think and to feel. And so I'd like to start sharing my screen, and I have a PowerPoint. And at the end, hopefully we'll have some time where we can really discuss. This is deep. So because it's about us as human beings, it's about us, the planet, the world we live in, and that we're all a part of it. We're all global citizens. We're all responsible. So it's really important today more than ever that we develop this holistic consciousness and step into our power. So bear with me as I endeavor. I've never used Google Meet before to share my screen. And let's see how this is going to work. It says can't share the screen. Aha.
I think the rights have to be given to Dr. Julia, who's looking after that.
Already it's given, ma'am.
Already given? Okay.
So here this is saying, I'll have to get my, unfortunately, my technician to help. I don't know why this is not working. Let me just see. I'm not quite sure where I've landed here and what I have to tick on to share. The microphone is obviously shared.
Hello.
Yeah,
Yes.
could you please guide?
Yes. Ma'am, please open the PPT first on the desktop.
Yes, it's open.
The PPT, yes.
Yeah, now come to the meeting screen.
Okay, because it's taken me to a pop-up window which says security and confidentiality.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask my husband if he can help.
Sure.
That's it. Thank you for your patience. I'm back. Let's have one more go at this. So here we go. That's it. Is that sharing now?
Well, clicking here.
Ah, yes. So how can I?
Stop presenting. So you have to go back to the here. So you have to ask if they can see your screen.
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Okay, so you can see the screen.
Yeah.
So Okay, I can't see you, but hopefully you can see me now. And so can somebody just give me a heads up that you can see my
Yes, please go ahead.
Fantastic. Okay,
Yes,
I do apologize for that little technical hiccup. So, from survival to thriving, and I'm sure everybody will agree with me that this is somewhere where we'd all like to go. A new framework for lifelong and higher education by myself, Dr. Julie Jerland. So once again, thank you all for inviting me to be here to share. So whenever I'm going to start something, I always ask myself, so why are we doing this anyway? The importance of the goal. And so I went on to the Manav Rachna's vision and was delighted to read, to educate students in frontier areas of knowledge, enabling them to take up challenges as ethical and responsible global citizens. And when I read this and the following mission, that was the moment that I said, yes, I can come along and speak with these people because this is what's important to me. So what is our mission? I say our mission as a collective because I adhere to this particular mission. So to impart outcome-based holistic education, so I've underlined that because this is what speaks to me, to disseminate education in frontier areas, so I'm presenting actually a frontier area, to produce globally competitive, ethical, socially responsible human, I would say, beings, but I understand resources, to produce human beings sensitive to issues of environment and sustainable development, and to develop environment and sustainable development as a thrust area of research and development in the world today. So these are all really, really key issues here that we must address. And I'm talking about somebody who in 1980, I actually gave out planetary passports at the United Nations when I was an intern there for an NGO and I was 21 years old. So planetary citizens, yes, we're all responsible for what is happening on this planet now, and we are in dire straits. So we must do something. And so this presentation is a little attempt to look at some of the areas that really need to be developed if we're going to move from survival to thriving. So how are we going to stimulate research-based teaching in higher education? We're now getting further down into, that's it, I'm in a university and we want to teach this higher education to students, and we want to take into consideration the overall goals and be really aware in our teaching manner, is it holistic? Are we facing frontier areas? Is it contributing towards sustainable development? Is it meeting the real needs of our teachers? Because they have to thrive. And we'll see why in just a moment. And of course, the students and the world in which they will evolve in, and the world that we are helping to mold. So it's absolutely clear today, and it has been actually for decades, that we need a paradigm shift. And that fundamental paradigm shift is, and this is what I have brought to the United Nations and to the British Parliament, is that if we work for survival, then we might get it. But I'm going to make an attempt to show you why if you struggle to survive, you're already doomed. So this doom and gloom that is reigning over the planet right now, and although there are wonderful things, globally, we're really making a mess of this planet and of our human beings. Suffering is absolutely rampant. We're destroying the planet. I don't think I need to really paint that picture. If you turn on your television, you will see it for yourself. And that's why I have decided not to watch television anymore. So who's making all this mess? Well, it's clearly the humans. So we must start with a paradigm shift in what is the human being. It's we who have to change. It starts, a sustainable development starts personally. It's not out there somewhere. It starts within each one of us. And nobody's going to come along and change us. We have to make those changes. And as an educator, it is our essential duty to use education, to use the power of being in a privileged situation with our students to make this shift. And as we do it for ourselves, we become contagious to bring this to those around us. And I'm going to show you in more depth on a physiological reality that's something that we can all relate to. So it's clear that we can no longer afford to be a part of a mindset, a system that is working hard to destroy the world, which is actually borrowed from our children. This really, really touches my heart, that we have to change our mindset and this paradigm. So as I touched on, the role of teachers and teaching methodologies are really critical for this paradigm shift, because we're responsible as teachers. We know that, everybody knows this, that 1 or 2 words from a benevolent teacher can change the life of that human being in front of us. We have a tremendous power and a role and responsibility. And how many of us have heard stories of, oh, I remember there was that one teacher back in school who said this or did this for me, and it changed my life. We've all, I'm sure, heard of these stories. And perhaps for you, many of your students have actually told you this many years later. Sir, ma'am, when you said this, when you did this, you changed my life. So the basic role of a teacher is the role model. And it was Mahatma Gandhi who said so rightfully that we must be the change we want to see in the world. So this involves a certain amount of personal development, academic. Yes?
Ma'am, I'm sorry to disturb you. I think we're still seeing the first page of the presentation. The presentation isn't.
I've gone on many slides already. So how can I do that?
Just click on that particular slide you have.
So if I just go back, have you seen this slide?
Yeah, sure.
You've already seen it?
Yeah, sure now.
No, ma'am. This is the first time we are seeing this.
Okay, so let me go back and
The first slide.
so I will keep it like this and not put it on lecture mode. So very, very basically, I went through the vision, the mission, the goal, the areas of the key areas of Manav Rachna's goals, the paradigm shift. And are you now seeing the slides changing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So sorry about this. So the necessity of the teacher as the role model. And so this is already a paradigm shift because it's no longer the top down. So in this new role model, we understand that actually our students might actually know more than us. And this is very true today because people have access to so much through the internet that we find that in almost every area, somebody, and possibly our students, has done some research and found out more than we know about it. So we need to have a collaborative model of teaching that is putting the teacher as the role model. Oops. Can you hear me? I hear somebody's
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
okay, fine. I could somebody's mic shaking. So what does this mean for the teacher to be the change? It takes a certain amount of self-inquiry to be able to reposition ourselves, to take criticism or feedback to do a certain work, did I say what I really meant? I'm going to develop myself. I'm going to take it upon myself to have lifelong learning. I don't just, I learn my matter, my subject, that's it, I know it, and I'm going to teach it for the next 20 years. No, because as Mum said earlier in the opening address, is that we're in a world that's constantly changing now. And so we have got to change and keep up with these change and be the leaders that we want to see in the world. So we also have to make what I referred to just now is this transition from living in survival mode to thriving, because this is an essential component of sustainable development. And I'm going to explain in a minute what I really mean by that. So one area that has been neglected in our academic institutions, particularly, is that we have developed the intellect often to the detriment of the heart. Now, I know I'm not teaching you anything in this, but we do actually have two hemispheres of the brain. And at the moment, we have the left hemisphere of the brain that is dominating over the right hemisphere of the brain. And so the left hemisphere, we'll see a little bit more about this, is really geared towards survival. And the right hemisphere of the brain is much more geared towards love, inclusiveness, and thriving. So this is a quote that I found on the internet from a scholar at the Chicago State University. And she says, many scholars may not be certain of exactly how to embrace intimacy in academic research, or they may have ideas about how, but choose not to do so. To suggest, however, that there are not ways in which we can bring love into our scholarly pursuits is a dangerous idea. It is also a familiar trope. So this comes from a paper that is called The Intimate Inquiry, a Love-Based Approach to Qualitative Research by Crystal T. Laura from the Chicago State University. So what have we got? We have these two hemispheres, and you all know this, but I'm just bringing it up so that we can have a discussion about it. So we often, especially with academic work and research, develop very much the left brain. And that is the analytical, the logical, the linear, the realistic, the objective, systematic, sequential. We all know that, right? And we often say, well, that's academic. We identify it. But actually, we're out of balance. So if we want a world of balanced, whole human beings, there's a whole side of us which is kind of, well, left out. So my idea is to include the right brain and develop the right brain in our higher education institutes so we can develop holistically. So the right brain is what? Is intuition, creativity. We have a more global perspective rather than just a me, it's the we. It's more random, it's subjective, it's how do I feel, it's spontaneous, it's imaginative. So we could all say it's more the feminine side of our being. And let's face it, this has been up to now fairly left out of our academic institutes. However, it was Albert Einstein who said, all meaningful and lasting change starts first in our imagination and then works its way out. So imagination, he says, is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress and giving birth to evolution. And he also said, intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them. So we've got to find ways in which we can all become geniuses. Higher education could turn out how many geniuses of people who are not only problem solvers, but we're actually getting to the root cause of our problems, personal, societal, and global problems, and we can prevent them. This, for me, is exciting. This is what, if we all put our energy to this, we could create a paradise on earth for everyone. So Einstein also said, the most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It's the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art and true science. And that love is a better teacher than duty. So how did I get into all of this? Well, 40 years ago, I learned from that, our earliest experiences from conception to infancy lays the foundation for our lifelong health, happiness, intelligence, creativity, and much more than that. So this was a paradigm shift, which is now, as I'm just going to explain, and it was said in the introduction to myself, is a paradigm shift. It's a huge paradigm shift. So when I discovered this, I was 22 years old, and my only desire, my only quest was, how can we live all together, all of humanity, one global family, thriving, everybody healthy, everybody happy. And I absolutely believed it then, and I absolutely, all these decades later, believe that it's possible now. And the only difference is I found out now how we can have this. So after deepening my knowledge in this from the age of 22, through self-exploration, experience, teaching parents, speaking at international conferences, and learning from global pioneers, I and my husband brought this to the United Nations. So we brought this overwhelming science, which instead of saying, well, educating a human being is what is going to make him or her what they are. What we know today is that by the time a child is born, in their earliest infancy, they have already set the most important foundation for their whole life. This is the paradigm shift. So with all this science that we brought to the UN, the UNICEF and partners came up with this document, the Nurturing Care Framework for Early Childhood Development. And it says, a framework for helping children survive and thrive to transform health and human potential. So this, as I've been following the United Nations and their work since I was 21 years old, several decades ago, is the first time that we saw this word thrive come into a globally accepted by all the 194 member states of the United Nations started to talk about thriving. And not only do we want babies to survive their prenatal development and birth, but this stage of development is actually able to transform their health and their human potential. So this is a 16-page document, but I'd like just to read these 3 quotes from this document. So it clearly says that during pregnancy and the first 3 years after birth, we lay down the critical elements of our health, well-being, and productivity, which will last throughout childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. That every child's health and well-being becomes the health and well-being of the community, society, the nation, and the planet. So it's important to create an interdisciplinary and holistic approach to this prenatal and perinatal psychology, provide early education to youth, couples, and parents, as well as offer significant support to couples. Now, what has this got to do with universities? Well, we have all been through this. So when dealing with another human being, we have to understand that we've all been through this period from conception, pregnancy, birth, and infancy. And it's already set us up, hardwired us for how we are going to approach life. Now, this is a whole science, and I would love for Manav Rachna to take this up as a new holistic frontier subject to study at master's and doctorate level, because it's being asked by the United Nations. And this we have found out, and I have given many presentations in India and found out that, of course, all this information is there in your Vedas. So, and this is called Garbh Samskar, or education in the womb. So it really does, our education starts at conception. So we're all concerned about this. So now the buzzword in the world, and you might have heard of it, is trauma informed. So from the moment we're born, we're actually already living to some degree of post-traumatic stress syndrome, all of us, because none of our births have been absolutely the way that nature has intended, giving us the best possible start. And now, with more than 40 years of expertise in this subject, there's a lot to be said on it. We can't go into it, but it's just enough to say that you as a teacher, first of all, have your own subconscious programming, which stems from your very early development, not childhood, way before. And the people in front of you, your colleagues, your students, and whoever you have to deal with, have already also gone through some of the most, I would say, the most formative years, 2 years of their existence. And so if they have experienced some level of trauma, which, as I said, we all have, then you need to know about it, because you are likely to be triggering people's early birth experience. So we will get into that in a moment. So what do we, my husband and I have, out of nearly 5 decades of work on this, come up with a transformation process that we help the people who wish to make this paradigm shift for themselves and for the world to learn with us. So it's a 5-pillar approach to harnessing our powerful inner resources, holistic development, and successful higher education and learning. So the pillar number 1 is, how do we transform toxic stress and fear, which is, I would say, the number 1 impediment to both learning, teaching, and positive outcomes. So if I was to say to you, do you know what it feels like to be stressed? Of course, everybody's going to say yes. Even children know what it feels like to be stressed. However, not many of us are really conscious and really know why or how fear and stress actually affect our health, our well-being, our learning outcomes, in fact, our relationships, everything in life. So we also have now higher burnout rates in students, suicide rates, drug taking. You all know this, I'm sure, as much as I do, that people are not well. And there is so much fear. We just need to look back over these last couple of years with the pandemic. Actually, I'm sure if we were able to measure the outcome of fear and stress in the last 2 years heaped onto us from the mainstream medias, and we would see the direct correlation between this fear and stress and the number of deaths, we would be absolutely flabbergasted. So when we are afraid, so we turn on the radio, we listen, monkeypox, we secrete in our body adrenaline and catecholamines, cortisol, the stress hormones. So what happens when, imagine we're going to work, we're in a class, and something triggers us, and we're now in this adrenaline and catecholamines. This leads to activating the hindbrain, the reptilian brain. We're no longer able to function in our neocortex. So it compromises all our vital functions because it activates the fight and flight. But we can't fight and flight. You can't run away. People try. But can you now? There's no safe place to go except to find it inside ourselves. It lowers the immune system. So if I'm afraid of catching COVID or failing my exams or getting the sack from my job, then I'm lowering my immune system. I'm more likely to get sick. And definitely I'm not going to be able to think properly and perform my duties, learn, pass my exams, become a positive force for good in the world. I just simply won't be able to do it physiologically. It affects our oxygenation, our health, our well-being, our healing, so many different things. So we could do a whole day of work just on that, but I think I've painted the picture. So what about all teachers and students learning how to transform this toxic stress and fear? They have to understand why they don't want it and that there is an alternative. This alternative is another group of hormones that we can secrete at will, called oxytocin, the love hormones, and endorphins, the well-being hormones. So these hormones, so let's go into this for a moment. You all know what it feels like as well. You're with friends and everybody's well and happy and loving. You feel connected. And how good does that feel in your body, right? We all have that from time to time. We need to have it all the time because at that moment, we are secreting these powerful hormones called oxytocin, the love hormone, and endorphins, the well-being hormone. So when we're secreting this, we're actually optimizing our health and well-being. We optimize our learning and our teaching capacities. We get enhanced compassion, empathy, connection, heightened intelligence, and concentration. So this is absolutely a prerequisite for the students to learn, and for any teaching or work environment. We want to have this because it optimizes everything. So the thing to know about these two groups of hormones, and they really are two groups, is that they are antagonistic. You cannot have these two groups running in your body at the same time. It's a choice. Am I in fear and stress, or am I in love and well-being? And the other thing about these two groups of hormones is that they are contagious. So if you have a teacher who walks into a room or is even on a Zoom call or Google Meet call, and this teacher is stressed for whatever reason, we all know the millions of reasons that we can be stressed, we have to know that this is contagious, that the others are going to pick it up and they will start being stressed. So this is a huge responsibility of faculty to, before they teach, to monitor themselves and to see, okay, am I coming into this classroom, a meeting with the students? Am I running inside my own physiology, my body? Am I in stress and fear of the outcome, of what they'll say, of what will happen? Or am I in love and connection? That would be a huge change. Everybody would be able to enjoy their student life, their work life much more, and we would lower the absenteeism rate from both faculty and students because everybody goes to work and goes to study or to learn because they feel good when they're there. This is the right brain. This is the heart that we need to add so that our performance and our outcomes would be so much better. So There's another pillar that we work with, because stress and fear very often comes with our relationships. And we all know that it's important to build a rapport between the teacher and the student. But sometimes we have a word that's going to trigger somebody else's, oh, he sounds like my dad, or I don't want to be told that, or all these different things. And you've touched somebody's early trauma, you've made them react to something. What are you going to do? Is it just going to get worse? Is it the end of the relationship? A cause of great suffering? How many people have I known that they have said they have gone on to do studies because they like the teacher, or the opposite? I'm not doing that. I'm not good at French. Why? Because I don't like the teacher. So this needs to become conscious. We can cultivate it. And building rapport using our solution is quantum or authentic communication. So another way that we're going to be able to create positive outcomes for teachers and the students is using the imagination. So before going into a class, for example, one thing is to monitor your body. Are you in fear and stress, or are you in love and connection? Okay, now I've done that, because there are ways you can absolutely choose yourself and do this yourself. And then the next thing is to imagine the positive outcome. So before coming onto this call, I did exactly that. Am I in a beautiful, loving state? Am I happy to see the people I'm going to see? Am I happy to share? And I imagine the outcome. So I see your smiling faces, although I can't actually see you now, in my mind's eye, and that makes me feel good. It empowers me. If I know I'm going to do a good job, I like this, and I'm going to turn out with my love and enthusiasm. So we harness the power of the right brain, imagination. So we can also get this sense of empowerment, as I've just said, and we can use it for healing and improving relationships. So this is a whole protocol that we have of, let's say that there has been a bit of a dispute between a teacher and a student, or between two teaching colleagues, that somehow there's been some sharp words, misunderstandings. This happens to all of us at some stage, and the person just didn't get what is said, and you got a little bit, kind of heated up, and the communication is stopped, and now you're kind of separate from each other, and you don't know how to get back into that feeling of oneness, of good communication, of good feelings, and empathy, and feeling loved and connected again. So we use quantum communication so that you can heal these relationships and improve your future relationships. So the other thing is to be able to deal with misunderstandings, anger, and trauma in yourself, and knowing that the person in front of you also has theirs. So the more you're trauma informed, and the more you work on yourself, the more compassion, the more empathy, the more what you have to communicate as a teacher is helping the other person holistically to develop their whole being. So their academic outcomes, because we know concentration, the left brain, everything will be more focused and more ability to use the left brain. So the other thing is for us to be able to communicate authentically. Many of us have been taught from childhood to be seen and not heard. And definitely, if you're angry or you're sad, I remember, saying to my father, I felt very sad. And he would say to me, well, you have nothing to be sad for, you have everything. So what is he saying is, well, I don't have the right to be sad, but I knew that I was sad. So we need to be able to validate people's feelings. Oh, Julie, I hear you're sad. Would you like to tell me about that? So once you create rapport, you create empathy, you create, oh, this person's actually seeing how I feel and they're interested in me. And little by little, we create safe container where I can actually express my real thoughts and feelings. And then we are another step closer to being a whole person, because we've all had the experience of somebody telling us something, and you absolutely know they're telling you one thing with a nice smile, but inside they don't think like that at all. They don't feel like that. And guess what? We pick it up and we say, yeah, well, they say all that. I mean, look at our politicians, maybe not yours in India, but ours in France. It's absolutely clear. We are not creating confidence with the government because exactly they are saying one thing and feeling another thing. So the other pillar is the womb as our first environment. And I've put Garbh Sanskar because that's the Sanskrit or Hindi word for education in the womb. And I've more or less just covered this, is that we can recognize early programming in the people, in ourselves, in our colleagues, in our students, that they have been set up with from their very earliest experiences in the womb and early infancy. And these lead to things like low self-esteem, negative attitudes, bullying, reactions to authority, imposter syndrome, etc. So once we understand that these are actually programs, nobody wants to be like this. These are programs that have been instilled in us from the very earliest age. And guess what? Yes, just like we can reprogram a computer, we can reprogram our subconscious programs. And then we can create safe environment for the expression of our feelings, different thoughts, ideas. If you could mute, that's great. So moving on, the fourth pillar is the way we're born. Now, I'm sure many of you will think, well, that's it. Is it important the way you were born? Well, my 40 years experience has shown me absolutely. Why? Because it's our very first experience, direct experience outside of the womb with what is life like here. So the conditions such as having been induced, forced to come into the world when you're not ready, cesarean sections, epidural, separation from mother at birth, an absent father, the cord being cut too early, not being breastfed. Do these affect your students, your colleagues? Absolutely. These interventions, early interventions, are affecting every single one of us right now. So we teach people what is the cause and effect and how we can heal it. So this is very important. Of course, I could spend a lot more time on it, but we don't have that much time. So I just wanted to bring it up so that you are aware that every single person in front of you has had some kind of trauma when they come into the world that says, oh, life is not good here. And so often when they first come into a room, they will actually act out the trauma of when they first came into the world. So we can be aware, and then eventually we can actually change these things. So, as I've just said, is identifying birth trauma, related difficult behavior, and their learning styles. So some people might not want to be told because they had a very authoritarian birth, and that's it. They were yanked out of their mother, turned upside down, spanked on the bum, and this is left, oh, nobody's going to do that to me ever again. And so when the teacher says, Julie, I want you to get your books out, or I'm going to do this, it's like, never again. So we have these reactions in people. And again, we need to understand, where does it come from? And this is some kind of subconscious birth memory. And we can learn to create an environment in our teaching, in our school, in our classrooms, that will actually be able to help the student, not necessarily by talking about it, by simply giving them another experience of what it's like to come into a classroom. Let's say there's 40 people in a classroom and somebody comes in. Do they feel intimidated? Oh, everybody's going to look at me. Or do they feel open, smiling, and say, wow, it's great to be here. Look at all these wonderful people. I know they love me and I love them. That would be so much better. And once again, we would be firing on oxytocin, the love hormone, which is connection and inclusion. So our pillar 5, which brings us to the end of our pillars, is living in harmony with our body. So our body is the planet. Our body is made up of all the same elements as the planet, and is made up from the planet, and is our first planet. So we can't just talk about the environment that's out there. You know, we're talking about water and saving water, looking after water. But what about us? We are, 70 to 90% water. So our body is our first environment. Our cells are conscious and intelligent. Shift of paradigm. It doesn't just happen. So again, we could talk a lot about our cells, the new biology of belief, and that everything is actually conscious and intelligent. So how can we learn to work with our body, which is keeping us healthy 24/7 without a break? All day long, all night long, our body is working for us to keep us healthy. It will do the best it can with what we give it. So are we offering our love, our gratitude, our collaboration to our body, the planet? Often not. Once you've been standing all day in a classroom, are you saying, thank you, body, for keeping me on my feet? Thank you for keeping me going. And then listening and honoring our body's messages. When our body tells us it's time to take a bio break, do we listen to that? Do we honor that? Or do we just hold on? So of course, if you're driving down the highway and you have to hold on, then you can tell your body lovingly, thank you for giving this message. But it's really not possible now. If you could really hang on, I will go to the toilet as soon as I possibly can. You are creating a loving bond and partnership with your body. So your body can then teach you and tell you and say, look, I need to move right now. I've been sitting at my desk all day. I need to get up. I need to stretch. Oh, it's time to eat. It's time to drink. It's time to get out into the sunlight. It's time to take a few deep breaths. It's time to walk bare feet on the ground. So the connection with nature, go and hug a tree. That we should be in touch with this earth, our body, and listen and respond with love and connection. And why not create working spaces that are really conducive to our health and well-being? So all this is part of the program that we teach called Birth the Change, that we adapted to, we have taught mostly hospitals and to do with birthing. We worked and had a partnership with the Fernandez Foundation Hospital in Hyderabad, who have been charged with teaching midwives nationally for the Indian government. And they are taking on board our Birth the Change program for their staff. So, conclusion. The new way of being is being the change we wish to see in the world. This begins at home before conception, that I think you've all now got, and continues on through all of life, lifelong education. our BTC or Birth to Change programs empower teachers and students alike to have a truly holistic experience of life, enjoying optimal lifelong health, well-being, and enhanced learning and success as a fundamental right, whilst contributing to sustainable global development on every level of our existence. So that is my presentation in a nutshell. And so if anybody would like to ask any questions or come back on any of that, I would be really delighted to share, what perhaps your thoughts and feelings on this as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gerland. It was truly engaging session. I mean, I personally learned a lot many things, how a teacher can be a life changer, how a teacher can be a role model, and how important it is to transform toxic fear and stress from one's life. Only then you will be able to, remove it from the student's life. Because what we have with ourselves, we carry it with ourselves. So, and this is what we convey to the students, maybe directly or indirectly. So that was truly engaging. Thank you once again.